Pride, tradition, excellence. We, the people. We, the Washington Tattoo.
Greetings, I'm Mark Riley, and welcome to the Washington Tattoo Podcast, where the world's musical traditions come to life. The Washington Tattoo is an international music and arts festival coming to the Washington, D.C. metro area. Our podcast explores the lives and stories of world-renowned musicians, dancers, producers, choreographers, artists, educators, arts advocates, and those who serve our cultural communities at large. For more information and donations, find us at www.thewashingtontattoo.com. Now please enjoy this episode of the Washington Tattoo Podcast, sharing the power of the arts, one story at a time. Welcome everyone to episode 4 of the Washington Tattoo Podcast. Today you are in for a super special treat with Dr. Paul Beyer of Clemson University. He is absolutely one of my most favorite human beings on the face of this planet. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please like, subscribe, and share with your friends, neighbors, and family. Thank you for supporting us, and please enjoy episode number 4. Greetings, everybody. We have Dr. Paul Beyer here today. He is the Director of Percussion, Director of Music, and Professor of Music at Clemson University. He's featured in Success Magazine's Achiever Series. Dr. Beyer is also a sought-after keynote speaker and author of Working Toward Excellence, 8 Values for Achieving Uncommon Success in Work and Life. He's also the author of Marching Bands and Drumlines, Secrets of Success from the Best of the Best, and co-author of The Art of Vibraphone Playing, an essential method of study and performance. His articles have appeared in American Music Teacher, Teaching Music, Jazz Education Network, Percussive Notes, and the PAS Educator's Companion. Dr. Beyer serves as a clinician endorser for Yamaha Percussion, Vic-Firth Drumsticks, Remo Drumheads, Sabian Cymbals, Grover Pro Percussion, and is an educational artist for Balter Mallets. He serves as the co-editorial director for Percussive Notes, the official Percussive Art Society journal. So, Dr. Beyer, incredible resume. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak today.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate you having me.
Excellent. So, I love getting to talk to you over the years. You have a plethora of information, shared experience, and knowledge about a lot of things. And so I love hearing about what first kind of gets people fired up or inspired to do what they do. So I love starting off with a question about, who would be your first big inspiration and why?
Well, I think that would have to be my first teacher, Mike Balter. I studied with Mike back when I was in high school. And just going over to his house and watching him play and seeing him play really opened up a whole world to me of what percussion could be about. And especially, he introduced me to PAS and got me involved with the Percussive Art Society. And he was my biggest mentor and is to this day. I was able to work his booth at PASIC for many years, and he would introduce me to all of his friends, of course, PAS Hall of Famers, players, teachers, all the industry guys. And I just grew up and learned about this profession through Michael before I started college.
It's incredible that you started that relationship and still keep it, vibrant and alive today. It's incredible.
Yeah, Michael's actually my second cousin. So when I was young and knew nothing, I didn't really know who he was and how prominent he was in the profession. And I was very fortunate that he mentored me and kind of showed me the ropes when I was younger.
That's incredible. I didn't know that. That's awesome. We've talked about this before. I'm a huge proponent of your book, Working Toward Excellence, and have used that in leadership counseling and leadership development in my career. And so I love how you've broken down the chapters. I think they're super digestible. And I think there's a lot of really practical application where I think a lot of leadership books are based on a lot of theory, and they're kind of pulling definitely different people's experiences in, but sometimes it's just a collection of theories. And I think yours is really grounded in a lot of actual experience and practicality. So I kind of have broken them down in my brain kind of as the groupings of 2. And I think like that idea of hunger and effort are really, I mean, that's definitely kind of the cornerstone for it. But when you were thinking about putting these books, these chapters together, that idea of proactivity for those first few chapters, what were some of your thoughts?
Well, I originally wrote the book for my students, just kind of a brief backstory. At the time, my percussion ensemble rehearsals were not going well, and my students were very apathetic. They were arriving late, they were not practicing, there was no urgency, and we were not working toward excellence. So all of these values in the book that you mentioned, hunger and effort and process, etc., were things we were not doing. And we were lacking. None of it was happening for whatever reason that semester. And when we gave our concert that semester, the concert was really below our standards. And I had a student come up to me right after the concert, and he just said, "Dr. Beyer, I never want to feel that way again." And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I went home and I started to brainstorm, why did this happen? What put us in this position? And how are we going to use this experience to grow? And I jotted down these 8 values, and that's how the book was kind of created. And at the time, there was not a lot of books on excellence. There was certainly, like you mentioned, a lot of leadership books and business books, and certainly books by coaches in all sports. But there was really nothing specifically about excellence. And so, to your question, hunger and effort are the first 2 values in the book, and these are very intrinsic qualities. So if you're going to work toward excellence, you have to be hungry, you have to want it, you have to be willing to work for it. You've got to go after it because nothing's going to be handed to you, and you've got to earn your success. And then effort, of course, we all know is about your work ethic. It's about your commitment, your sacrifice, and your self-discipline. And anything that you want in life, if you're going to be successful, you got to have an unbelievable work ethic. And we certainly know in music that's very true.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I think that's also that helping to build that maturity level, from being an 18 or 19-year-old freshman coming in, or even a 17-year-old freshman, and starting to go, well, I'm not having everything spoon-fed to me anymore. It's maybe a little bit fed to me, but it's definitely, you have to take the bites on your own, and you have to figure out how much can you take in one bite, and how much can you chew and digest for you to be, successful in that hunger effort.
That's very true. There was a quote by LeBron James that he just said, "Earned, not given." And this is, he said this after he won his first championship with Miami, and our students don't always understand this. So a lot of times in high school, they've been given things. They've succeeded without giving a lot of efforts. It's been easy, and it's been handed to them. And not in all cases, of course. But certainly in college, where I've been at Clemson for over 20 years, you've got to earn everything that you get. And then when you do graduate and you get that diploma, you can be very proud that those results and that success is a result of your effort.
No, that's fantastic. So going to the next 2, process and quality. I mean, I think, again, these are those building blocks for obviously excellence, but it's definitely paired typically with, people's experience or their growing process, whether, they're a freshman, sophomore, or even a returning student who maybe didn't do so well in college the first go around, but then they have some experience under their belt, and recognize that really process is everything when it comes to quality, right?
No, you're exactly right. Process is everything. And if you look at anybody's results, let's just take a concert or a performance or a recital, that product that you're putting on stage is a result of your process. And if you perform at a mediocre level, it's a result of a mediocre process. And if you perform at an excellent level, that's a result of an excellent process. And there's just no shortcuts to this. Now, where students get the wrong idea is a lot of times when they're in class, this is not the case, right? They can give a mediocre effort or have a mediocre process and still succeed. And that happens sometimes. But in the real world, your process is the long game. It is something that takes a lot of thought and planning and consistency, which is also in the book. And you have to execute that process every single day if you're going to get the results that you're seeking. And that's why the book is called Working Toward Excellence. It's really about the journey to get there. It's not really about achieving excellence, although that's your goal. It's about what you need to do to get there on a consistent basis. And process is certainly a huge part of that.
I love that. It's one of the things we speak on in the military quite a bit is your level of training. You're never going to execute to the level that you hope to. You're always going to execute to the level that you've been trained. So that consistency, that repetition, and that process right there really is what you can lean on. And if you're leaning on something that's less than what you're desiring for that process, you're probably gonna fall, which creates a different opportunity. But you're really trying to, I think, minimize the failures through that step process, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's giving you a sense that if you commit to the process, that you know what you're going to get in the end. It's not going to be a surprise.
Yeah.
So now, this does not guarantee success for sure, but it certainly puts you in a better position. And if you do this repeatedly, whether you are preparing for a concert or taking a class or writing a book or training for a marathon, there's a process to everything that you're going to do, and you can apply that. And if you really take the process seriously, you're going to be very happy with results.
Well, I love speaking on that too, because a lot of folks will ask, how do you become successful? How can I be significant? And quite honestly, that speaks to that quality piece that you have as well. From that process, that's going to really talk about your credibility from a quality point of view. And later on we'll get to the quality control piece, but I think the idea of building the process, then having quality after that, that's going to speak about you, your brand, and really your character, I believe.
Well, you said it. It's very much about your brand. And I think if your goal is to work toward excellence, your brand has to stand for quality. And that could be a product. It could be your playing. It could be the quality of your teaching. It could be the quality of your writing, your blog, your website, your books. If you're a manufacturer, that's what all of our friends in the industry are looking at. They're looking at the quality of their products, how their instruments sound, the craftsmanship of everything they're doing. And as consumers, everybody wants quality. We're not going to pay for mediocre products or performances out there. Why would we? So, right. Quality and excellence go hand in hand. And as you said, the process is the reason you're gonna get there.
Yeah, fantastic. And so, kind of going the next step there, consistency and leadership. My instructor Nick had always taught me that this was something that we are stewards of. That we need to give back. We can't take it with us. And I really felt that section really spoke to me, and I love sharing that section with other people. Because it feels like at that point, once you do have the quality from the process, going to the consistency of that quality is also, there's a lot of lessons learned usually in that, but it gives you the chance to figure out, is your process for the quality reliable, and can it be consistent?
Yes. I think one of the biggest gifts we can give those that we lead is the gift of consistency. Again, if your goal is to work toward excellence, you want to do that all the time. You don't want to just do it once in a while. It's also kind of addictive. Once you achieve excellence and achieve your goals, have a great performance, get into that grad school that you want, land that dream job, have your book published. You want that again, and you've set a standard for yourself. You've set a standard, a bar for yourself and those you lead. So consistency is crucial, because you can't just fall back on your laurels and expect it to happen again. And the thing with excellence, Mark, is you've got to get up every day and start over. Right? So it doesn't matter what you did today. If you were successful or not, you still have to start again tomorrow, and you have to do those same things. In terms of leadership, that's been my passion for many years. And I guess the short summary of this is, if your goal is to work toward excellence, you have to be a leader. So, in my opinion, you can't really achieve excellence unless you have leadership skills like character and competence and communication. Listening, you have to care about what you're doing. You have to care about others. Certainly, if you're an educator, and that all comes to fruition. So, leadership is non-negotiable if excellence is your goal.
I love it. And I remember sitting through a leader development afternoon with our Colonel Tewitt, who was our last regimental colonel. And he hit me with this. I mean, this really spoke to me because he said, there's no amount of charisma that can substitute good management. And it just, I mean, because that's, as we become leaders, I think we start to find our niche and we start to kind of figure out which side of things, managerially speaking, or leadership, or charisma side of things, like do I have a voice? Do people listen to me? But as we start to get older, we start to recognize where we fall short in all of those spectrums, and have to start really figuring out what we need to work on, especially when you're talking excellence. It could be that you're excellent brushing your teeth, but are you excellent at brushing your hair and taking a shot? Like, there's so many more components to it, and it just starts to build. And I think you're right; it does become addictive when you start recognizing how the process works to build quality, because it feels good when you're consistent.
Absolutely, yeah.
Awesome. So to wrap up the last couple chapters, just talking about the book. Time and perseverance, I think, are really critical. I know that speaks to me. And I always think about time management, especially when you have built a career of success, or even if you're trying to build a career of success. Those are master traits of figuring out how to allocate your time, figuring out what our time sucks versus, time added value, and things like that. So, when you came up with this idea here, what were some lessons learned that you thought when it came to time and perseverance?
Well, I've always been kind of obsessed about time, and a lot of percussionists are. We're getting there early, we're staying late. To me, if you look at any successful person, they are very protective of their time. They can't stand wasting time. And, we all have 24/7. So, it does, everybody who's been successful, who's famous, they have the same amount of time as we do. The trait that really has helped me and my students is the ability to say no. And this is something a lot of people really struggle with. They want to please everybody. They say yes to all these questions and offers and meetings and committees and extra stuff. And their heart's in the right place. But when you say yes to one thing, you are saying no to something else. And I call it spinning plates. I talk about this in the book. The more plates you spin, the more likely they are to fall. And the best example I can give you is with the percussion ensemble or the drumline. If I give them too many pieces of music and they struggle and they don't have enough time to practice, all those pieces are going to be mediocre. But the second I cut one of them, they can breathe again, and then whatever we have left is going to be excellent. So it's an elimination game. And you have to have courage to do this, even in your own life. You have to have the courage to say no. You have to have the courage to cut pieces. You have to have the courage to protect the time that you have so you can achieve excellence. Because if you're spinning 12 plates, the odds of achieving excellence are very low.
Right.
If you can cut one or two out, your odds go up a lot. And again, we're all trying to balance work and family. And especially now in today's environment, our time is the most valuable resource that we have.
Yeah, I've always heard if, you gave away time, if you were to equate that to giving away money, you would be much more careful about how you spend that money. And I think it's interesting as well to speak on the perseverance piece, because you're going to make mistakes, you're going to fail, you're going to fall. And, that's where if you go back through kind of those steps, you can start to see where did you slip a little bit, or where did you maybe not give that extra time to that one thing, and you maybe not have to live through that lesson again.
Yeah, I think, perseverance is the eighth value. And I agree. All the other values give you the ability to persevere. It gives you the character and the fortitude to persevere. And again, if you look at any successful person, they're going to have adversity in their life. They're going to have overcome a lot of things. It hasn't been easy. And perseverance is necessary for you to achieve excellence, because excellence is really hard. And it's because it's hard, you're going to have a lot of obstacles, and you're going to have a lot of decisions to make. And there's going to be a lot of opportunities that you may say you want to quit. And those who are successful, they say that, and then they decide not to. They decide to persevere. So it's huge. And of course, we're all persevering right now in COVID-19 and all the uncertainty. And, we have to continue to persevere despite what is happening. And, we're going to come out on the other side at some point.
Well, and, just to speak on a few things with the book, and I really feel like this is, it's number one, it's a great read. And I think it's not that it's an easy read or a quick read, but you're not inundated with hundreds and hundreds of pages of, fluff. And I think it really cuts right to the heart of a lot of key principles and values, and where I feel like the most return on investment, if folks are interested in getting the book, is that it really helps to have the accountability mirror in effect. And you get to look at yourself, ask yourself those questions, and then recognize that really these are limitless values. These are really principle-based ideas that they're almost kind of philosophical truths in a way.
Yes, they are. There's a lot of self-reflection. There's several questions at the end of each chapter that you can kind of measure the value that you're reading about and see where you stack up and what you need to do to improve. The book, I think, is timeless because excellence, number one, it applies to all fields and all industries and all professions, and it's never going to go away. And if you're someone who is a high performer, excellence is always going to be your goal, and it's never going to be a dated book. So you can pick it up in 20 years, and I'm hopeful there will be more books on excellence by then, but I think everything's still going to apply. Yeah.
There's a book out there called Mastery by Robert Greene, and he starts talking about the equation of the perfect situation, and how do you try. I mean, not that the entire book is based on process, but there's quite a bit of process that he tries to analyze there to figure out what's the equation for mastery. And the 10,000 hour rule, you hear all these different ideas, but I mean, I agree. I think the idea of leadership is fantastic. I think bridging the gap then to excellence, it serves humanity. It's a humanitarian service there. And I really applaud you for really tackling this in a very well thought out and productive book.
Thanks, Mark. I really appreciate that. I'm very proud of it and the feedback that we've gotten from the book, and I'm excited to see where it goes. So I appreciate you talking about it today. Yeah.
Excellent. So next topic I'd love to dive into is a little bit about commitment. And I think this is something I feel that's obviously always a challenge for educators trying to speak to students. You definitely have the students who are easy. They buy in right away because they love it and they're just all about it. Then you have students that maybe they were forced into having to send their kid to soccer, or I'm dealing with that with my 7-year-old. So you have to, the buy-in factor, I think, is always part of the situation. But when it comes to committing and finding challenges with students, what are some methods or some ways that you help students kind of buy in to commit to tackling, your program?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it has definitely been one of the most challenging parts of teaching and teaching percussion. I think the best thing that I've found that works is that whoever you're leading has to buy into you first, and then they will buy into your vision or your plan or whatever it is that you're trying to get them to do. If they don't buy into you, meaning they don't find you credible, they don't trust you, they don't respect you, they're never going to buy into your vision, no matter how appealing it might be to them. So that's the first thing. I think you have to communicate very effectively with them. and you have to care about your students and the people that you're leading. That is certainly going to enhance their commitment. And you have to get the right people on the bus, to borrow the Jim Collins mantra, meaning you have to have the right people, the right personnel on your team to achieve excellence and to work toward a common goal. Mm-hmm. So the tool that I use is called the Commitment Continuum, and this is by Jeff Jansen. He's a sports leadership expert. I know him personally. He's written several books that are really outstanding. And he's come up with a 6-step continuum on where a person might find themselves with commitments. I'll just go through them really quickly. The top of your continuum is compelled. And compelled is the highest level of commitment that you can have. These are your leaders. These are your superstars. These are your staff members. This is what you expect from your leaders. They go above and beyond. They do whatever it takes. They don't complain. They are all in, 100%. Below that is committed. That's number 2. And those are the people that are right. There could be leaders as well, but they may not be 100% all in, but they're still people that you can trust and rely on. Third is compliant. And compliant are people that will follow the directions and they'll do whatever you ask, but they're not really doing any extra and they're not going above and beyond. But, they're positive influences on your team. And as I'm reading this, I'm sure you and our listeners are probably visualizing people as we speak, because I know I always do when I'm going through it. So we've got compelled, committed, and compliant. Those are the top 3. The bottom 3, as you can imagine, are a little more negative. Fourth is existent. And existent people are just kind of there in body and spirit. They're not really contributing very much. They don't talk. They don't do anything without you pushing them to do it. You wonder why they're even on your team to begin with. Mm-hmm. They enjoy it enough, I suppose, to participate, but they certainly don't help you move the bus forward. Mm-hmm. Fifth is reluctant, and these are people who are very they are suspecting, they are not buying in, they are negative and kind of in it for them and don't really put the team first and don't really listen to the staff or the instructors, anything like that. They're reluctant. They're just not sure this is for them. Mm-hmm. And maybe part of them is like, well, maybe I'm not going to do this next time. Right. Or maybe I'm going to quit. And then last, the people you really want to avoid are the resistants, people that are resistant. And these are people that are very aggressive and proactive with being a negative influence on your team. They might talk back. They might badmouth you behind your back. They might try to sabotage the team. These are people you want to kick off immediately if you find that they are being this way. Now, not to go on too long, but my goal as a leader is to move my students up the curriculum. Sorry, the continuum. Yeah. So there's ways to do this, but it really starts like I opened with buying into you as the leader. Mm-hmm. And if they trust you and respect you, they're going to listen to you, and they can change, right? Students and young people change right before our eyes all the time. So especially in an activity like band, which is multiple years, they just need to mature sometimes. And so it can happen.
I love the fact that you've put, obviously, the commitment piece, you've done research and you put it into even a process there. So there's even familiarity with the value that you're there. And it's, I guess, and that, to me, that's that really critical educational component of taking something that works, applying it to something else, and still finding a way and a method and a means to build something better and work toward that excellence.
Absolutely. And really, the thing that works beautifully as well is once the students read the descriptions of these 6 levels on the continuum, it's like a light bulb goes off. Like, oh man, that's me. Yeah. That is me to a T. And you know what? I don't need to be like that. I can make a change. And I can move up. I can become more committed or compelled and really positively contribute. So it's a great tool. Yeah, thanks.
No, and it makes me think of just the verse of, to who has been given much, much will be asked, right? Or to will be demanded, and to those who have been entrusted with more, even more will be asked. And it's one of those things where obviously you've taken a lot of time to reflect on your own life, your own skills, your mentors, and everything else. And honestly, this is what I really do admire about you so much, is you're applying those self lessons. You're bringing other people under your wing, and honestly, your program has really been, a beautiful thing for the next generation of, in my opinion, not just students, but for people. You're helping build better quality people, and I think that's really the root of almost all educational endeavors.
Well, that's really my philosophy. Is I can't remember how long ago I realized this, but my job is not to teach percussion; it's to teach people. And that's exactly what you're hitting on.
Yeah, I love it. So you're a drum corps guy as well. And honestly, Star of Indiana is one of my all-time favorites. Such a storied, amazing corps. As a member, when you were as a younger player, when you were in the corps, how did you feel that experience kind of shaped who you became?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I marched Star of Indiana in 1989 and 90, and it was a catalyst in my career. And I was not a very good musician before I went, because I really didn't know how to practice. I didn't know the value of practicing. Of course, in drum corps, you're practicing 12, 13 hours a day. The repetition that you mentioned earlier was not something I've ever been exposed to. And just the staff that we had Dennis DeLucia and Tom Hannum and Lalo Davila and John Evans, Bob Dubinsky. I had some really wonderful teachers that cared about me and took an interest in me and really helped my development when I was.
It's a dream team.
It was a dream team, and it was a great. It was near my home in Indiana. It was a great corps. We were still very young, and I had never ever heard about drum corps at the time. I never attended a show. I had a roommate march in 1988 to the Porgy and Bess year, and he said, you might be interested in auditioning next year. There's an opening in the front ensemble, which is where I was, and made the pit and served as section leader my second year. Wow. So, in those days we were rotating around and we were playing everything in the front ensemble. We were not just on one instrument like I think some groups might be doing now. Mm-hmm. But it was just a great experience, and I came back from drum corps totally transformed as I went into college.
I love it. So for folks that are that are pursuing a career in music today, what would be some advice you would give them?
Well, I would say, it seems like everybody can play right now. Everybody's got chops. Everybody's playing at a really, really high level. So that is no longer a differentiator, in my opinion. Very few people can really lead and build a program and build a culture very similar to what we've been talking about so far. So the thing that's going to get you that job and separate yourself from, the other 50 or 75 people that are applying for that position is your leadership skills. It's, can you build a culture? Can you develop relationships? Can you teach? Can you connect? Things like that. Your playing is very, very important because you've got to demonstrate these things. But that's just a piece, right? I think you have to become a well-rounded performing artist. I know at Clemson we have a lot of classes in music business, in marketing. I've taken new passions like speaking and writing really to heart. That's been a big part of my career, with writing books and articles and speaking about the books and doing podcasts like this. And then, besides reading books and listening to podcasts, attending conferences, anything you can do to become a lifelong learner. I think that's really a big part of it too. So you got to stand out somehow.
Well, I like how you had mentioned connector, being able to be a connector. And I think there's also a difference between being a networker, which is sometimes looked as a negative thing, but I mean, really it is connecting. It's just that some folks maybe are, doing it for different reasons, and as opposed to really trying to build that culture we talked about earlier.
Yeah, you've got to be authentic. And there's a difference between connecting and communicating. So, connecting means you basically are getting into their hearts, and you get into trust and respect and listening and things like that. And, communicating sometimes is just one-sided, and connecting is two-sided.
I love that. We're working through a book right now with our leadership team about the speed of trust. And I mean, it seems very obvious and it seems very simple, but it's always, the most simple things can be the most difficult to achieve, right?
That's right. And it doesn't happen by itself. You got to be very intentional.
Exactly. All right. So as a performer or an instructor, do you have a greatest musical memory?
Yeah, I think two came to mind. I think, certainly drum corps, my finals performance, which was in Buffalo, New York with Star of Indiana. And I only marched for 2 years, but it's always emotional when you age out and you're performing in front of 40,000 people and you're never going to be able to do it again. The emotions were very, very high. It really had nothing to do with if we won that night or not. It was about putting everything that you had and leaving it on the field, and we did that. And I also played timpani with the University of Arizona Wind Ensemble when I was a graduate student, and we played David Maslanka's Mass.
Oh, wow.
And there were seven drums in the timpani part that I had set up, and it was the most difficult and challenging wind ensemble part I've ever played, and devoted my life that whole semester to that piece, and it was really a special. And David was there.
Oh, wow.
At the performance. So no pressure playing the Mass while the composer's in the audience. For 7 timpani, but it was great.
That's awesome. So obviously you definitely make a career and a life of learning and teaching. What are some other things that recharge your batteries or keep you inspired?
Well, I'm a big reader. I am addicted to books. One of my favorite things to do is to go to Barnes & Noble or buy something on Amazon. And I can't wait to see what somebody else has to say about these topics, right? Leadership, excellence, communication, success. It's an addiction for sure. And I've got over 200 books in my library. And that keeps me going. I love podcasts. I listen to podcasts more than music these days, whether it's in the car or walking around the neighborhood now or working out. I just want to learn. I want to see what other successful people have to say about the topics that I'm interested in. And certainly passing this on to my students is inspiring. And my son, I also have a 7-year-old. And keeping this going. I've been at Clemson for 22 years. This is my 23rd year, and I still feel very enthusiastic. I still love it. It's always a challenge. I'm never complacent, and I also say the PAS also inspires me as well, in all those relationships.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, I think Percussive Art Society, every single year, it's always a recharge of the batteries, even though you're exhausted by the end of the 4 days that are there. But you see old friends, and it was funny because for years I would say, I need to go to one thing each year to kind of recharge myself, and I was like, no, now it's every 6 months I need to go to something to recharge. And then I started recognizing that recharge actually was coming from what we said, that connecting and speaking truth and starting to recognize other people that were around. And I love that you have brought that up, because teaching, I always feel, brings that out of me, and I'm trying to find that and spark that in others. And I feel like that's that idea of service, and serving other people helps bring me fulfillment.
Well, you said it. Service is what PAS is all about, and PAS has done so much for all of our careers that we all want to give back to the organization, and we do. And it's really about the relationships. It's amazing the quality of relationships. You and I just really see each other once a year, for the most part. But over a number of years, you can build some really awesome relationships through PAS, through PASIC, through going to the convention, and through keeping in touch during the year and not just relying on the one convention. So it's a special organization. I encourage any drummer percussionist listening that is not a member to join. It's special. It will help your career, and it will fulfill you without question.
Absolutely. All right, so we definitely will have some music educators listening to this. With everything that's going on with COVID right now, do you have anything that you could share, maybe to inspire them, or any advice you could share with them?
Well, this is we're all going through a very difficult time now, especially in the arts. And what I'm trying to do is do everything I can for my students to stay positive. And we're planning to reopen with obviously the safety protocols in place. And what I'm telling them, I'll just kind of share with the listeners as well. But I kind of take this from the angle of what we're going to tell our students during COVID-19, staying home, etc. So my questions are, what will the job market look like in your field, industry, or profession? What changes and new opportunities will exist that may not exist now? So that's the first set of questions. So, we're going to come out of this different. Mark Cuban, who's a Shark Tank star, called it America 2.0. So, what is America going to look like after this is all over? What opportunities will be out there? And this is for everybody, but especially for our students that just graduated, for example. What is going to exist? And I don't know if anybody can predict it, but things are going to change, and we can use that as a positive if we give some forethought during this time while we're quarantined and at home. How will you stand out? How are you preparing? How are you using the time now while you're at home? How are you getting ready? Okay, so a lot of people, students especially, might be doing very little. They might be binging Netflix, sleeping in, bored. They're not using the time. They're waiting for the outside world to tell them what to do. And, I'm certainly not doing that myself, and I'm encouraging I'm becoming very proactive, right? I'm reading, I'm studying, I'm exercising, I'm communicating through Zoom. I'm working on my 4th book and finishing that up. I shot some videos for my website. So, I'm just trying to get ahead of the game. So when this is over, I'll be ready. And then the last set of questions is, what skills are you developing? What relationships and what connections are you building? And how are you going to max out your time and jump out of the gates when this is over? So to me, that is really motivating stuff. Rather than waking up every day at 11 a.m. and saying, what am I going to do today? So I've got a plan. And it's difficult because, we're all going through a lot of fatigue being online so much and being on Zoom so much and being at home so much. But you just got to be smart about it and try to get as much done as you can so you will be ready. And we will be out of this at some point. So, the people who are going to be successful are going to have made the most of their time now.
I love that, because one of the things that I always have heard is that if you're not proactive, you will be reactive when someone else is proactive towards you.
Right. Yeah. And it comes back to hunger, which is what we started with today. Hunger has a lot to do with being proactive.
Yeah.
And you've got to go get it. You've got to take charge of your own life and take action because you are wanting it, because you're willing to do what it takes.
And I love that too, because I remember being in an initial meeting with a new regimental sergeant major, and he was talking about, bringing your systems to the game. So no matter where you go, you have systems. Even if you don't have systems, that's your system. So, if your system is to not have a system, it's still a system. So it's probably just an unproductive one. But that whole idea of, how do I wake up in the morning? And of course, you have to take a break and you have to have time where, maybe you do sleep in a day here and you leave. But try to program it but then set up your days for how you can be the most successful possible. And I think it was a big challenge for us with having kids, young kids, especially when we were trying to figure out, are we going to bring them to daycare? Are they going to stay home? Are we going to do online learning? And then really trying to figure out that family time and budget really those hours of the day. And you know what, if you know that your child is really going to need to have, 2 hours of running around outside, try to figure that out at certain points of the day where right after that they're going to crash, and you can go sit on your hour or your 90-minute long meeting and take care of business.
Yeah, schedule is really, really, really important, especially if you have kids at home. Sure. I'll just add one more thing. We're all in the same boats. All music educators, we're all going through the same thing, which is really strange when you think about it. I know PAS and CBDNA have been wonderful resources for me and for a lot of people. Our director of bands here at Clemson, Mark Speed, is the president of CBDNA right now, and they have a lot of resources, and they're working on this together. So if people need support, if they need a network, if they need people to talk to, if they need help as far as what the fall might look like, I would go to CBDNA and check out the website. And the same thing with PAS for percussion.
And I love that. I mean, that's a huge thing right there. Folks don't know what to do. Don't sit in your bunker. Reach out to folks. And, everyone wants to help each other. So that's one of also the reasons why we're doing these podcasts, is to be a resource for folks that we're going to be in this for a little while longer. So might as well figure out how to get the best minds together and start figuring out a plan.
That's right. And we're all problem solvers, Mark. So you got band directors and percussionists in the room. We can overcome anything.
Exactly. So last few questions here. Obviously, we all have different seasons in our life, seasons in our career. We have the ups and the downs. Do you have a book or a quote or something that you kind of rely on when you feel like you're kind of in a down season or a season of feeling stuck?
Yeah, I think there's a couple quotes here that came to mind. The first one is 2 words. It's never arrive. And this is Pat Summitt, the former Lady Vols women's basketball coach, who's passed. But she had one of the dominant programs in women's basketball for a long time, and she just always told her players never arrive, which means it doesn't matter how successful you've been, you keep going, and you never settle, and you work on that consistency. Another one is, are you here for something to do, or are you here to do something? So I love that one. That's Jeff Jansen, because a lot of people are just going through the motions, and they're just here for something to do, to have fun, to pass the time. But the ones that are wanting to achieve excellence are here to do something special, and they're committed. Right, goes back to what we talked about before. As far as books, 2 came to mind. The Fred Factor by Mark Sanborn is a wonderful short read about customer service, but it applies to taking everything to another level in your work. It's really about a mailman who recreates what it means to be a mailman, and really develops some wonderful relationships with the people that he delivers to. And he loves his job, whereas perhaps other mail carriers find it very mundane and monotonous and do not have a lot of passion for it. And then I would recommend Deep Work by Cal Newport. He's a wonderful writer. He's actually a computer science professor at Georgetown. And this is about how to focus and concentrate, and like you were talking about the daily schedule, block things off, uninterrupted time, dealing with your devices, your technology, all the distractions out there, and get some really high quality work done every day.
I love that. I mean, we have the distraction factory built into our lives right now.
Yes, we do. And the book is all about that.
Yeah, and every marketing genius knows that. So what are they going to do? They're going to find ways to get in your brain, and their job is to disrupt you to sell ads.
They're very successful.
Yeah. So last couple of questions here. I love this one. If the current you could give advice to your 20-year-old version of yourself, what would you tell yourself?
Well, I think, I had no business majoring in music when I came to college. I couldn't read pitches. So I would tell myself to take piano lessons and learn how to read. I was just a drummer, in quotes, and was just stuck on the drum parts and was never given the opportunity to play mallets or anything like that. So, I would have told myself to get a teacher. This is before Mike Balter came into my life, but, someone who was local that could show me and coach me and teach me so I was on a better path. I really took a strange path to percussion compared to some of my peers and colleagues now that had much better experience at an earlier age.
Yeah, I wish I had played piano. I remember doing my piano proficiency sophomore year of college. It was not pretty.
Yeah.
All right, so final question. What are some things you currently, we touched on a little bit, what are some things that you have coming up personally or professionally?
Well, the biggest thing is I mentioned my fourth book is at the publishers now, and actually, Mark, you're a contributor to this book. Right now it's called Marching Percussion Mindsets, and it's about, you mentioned systems. So actually the subtitle right now is 16 Systems for Becoming a Great Drumline. And I've been very fortunate throughout my career in PAS to, again, develop a lot of great relationships. And I was able to get over 20 marching percussion experts, heavyweights, legends, Hall of Famers to contribute to the book and kind of do some email interviews on leading and building cultures, practicing, rehearsing, listening, cleaning, performing, arranging, competing, auditioning, reading, marching, tuning, staffing, and self-caring, which is all about our ear protection and hydration and stress and sleep and injury prevention. And that features Elliot Cleveland with Marching Health, one of my former students, if the listeners know about his amazing organization and what he's doing for the marching activity. So really excited. I kind of call this the last dance for percussion, with everything shut down and DCI and WGI canceled. We need something, just like the sports fans needed the last dance with Michael Jordan when it came out. And hopefully this book will be out in August or at least the fall. I'm working with my publisher, Gar Whaley and Meredith Music right now. And looking forward to everybody's thoughts on it.
That's fantastic. I can't wait for that to come out. And it was an honor to be a part of it, my friend. It was when I saw just the opportunity to talk about, the things that we're most passionate about, which is obviously playing is a piece of it, but the performance of it is really a tool for so many other great things, right? And I think you always talk about it, and other folks talk about it as well. My dear teacher, Nick, would talk about it, but it was, drumming is a tool, but you're really learning about life.
Yeah, I use the word vehicle. So look, percussion, music, it's a vehicle for teaching our students about life and about being successful in whatever careers they pursue, because a lot of my students are non-majors, and certainly a lot of marching ensembles throughout the country, they're not going to be music majors necessarily. But very similar to sports, you can learn all those life lessons through what we do.
I love it. So from me to you, I have to say thank you so much for taking the time to speak. It's an honor to be a friend of yours, and honestly, to watch how you manage work-life balance, family, all of that. It's incredibly inspiring for me, and I love how grounded you are about, tons and tons and tons of experience, and you stay so humble, and I love that about you, and it's really inspiring.
Thanks, Mark. Our friendship has meant a lot to me as well, serving on the marching committee together for many years and just getting to know each other through PASIC, through PAS. And congratulations on the podcast and everything you're doing as well.
I appreciate it. So, folks, if you want to find out more about Dr. Paul Beyer, or Clemson University, please look him up at www.paulbeyer.com or www.clemson.edu. Dr. Beyer, thank you so much, my friend, for taking the time this afternoon.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it so much.
Greetings again, everyone. We just wanted to take a second to say thank you to Seif Studios for their creative media. If you want to find out more about Seif Studios, look them up on www.seifstudios.com. We'd also like to say thank you to our educational partner, Prologix Percussion, American-made drum pads. They're doing a special discount code for our listeners today. So if you go to www.prologixpercussion.com and type in TWT20, you will receive 20% off your entire order. So thank you very much for tuning in today, and please check out our supporters.